When you hear the words Cartoon Network, what does that make you think about? Eddy and Eddy, Amazing World of Gumball, maybe Ben 10 or Dexter's Lab?
You know, cartoons, the classics.
Well, there was this weird time period where
Cartoon Network tried to pivot away from cartoons. No Dexter, no Camp Lazlo. But instead, when you turn to Cartoon Network looking for cartoons, you got the worst thing you can imagine: people. Real people. I mean, they had game shows, reality shows, I think a talk show. It was like a whole pivot, a whole new network, a whole new programming block that they were calling
CN Real.
CN Real. And it was supposed to be the future of Cartoon Network. But spoiler alert, it wasn't. Fans hated it, ratings tanked, and now it is remembered as one of the most infamous moments in Cartoon Network history. So let's talk about how a channel built on cartoons almost completely abandoned it and why it failed so badly.
before the dark times, before CN Real, Cartoon Network wasn't just another channel, it was the headquarters for animation. From its launch in 1992 through the 2000s, CN built an identity so strong that it was basically in the name, Cartoon Network. It was for cartoons all the time, no exceptions. In the mid to late 90s, they rolled out their original cartoons lineup. Shows like Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, Cow and Chicken, and Ed, Edd and Eddy. These weren't just shows, they were cultural touchstones. They had a specific style, quirky humor, weird art, and just the right amount of chaos. By the early 2000s, Cartoon Network was expanding in every direction. You had Samurai Jack bringing in cinematic action, Teen Titans blending anime influences with superhero hype, Foster Song from Imaginary Friends delivering some of the most creative visuals on TV, and Ben 10, which became a full-blown merchandising machine. Then there was Toonami, the gateway drug to anime for an entire generation, introducing kids to things like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, One Piece, Gundam, Bleach. That block alone built lifelong fans. Even the bumpers were iconic. Those surreal little shorts with the CN City where characters from different shows all lived together. It gave the network a personality. It felt like a club you were part of.
And the best part, it was consistent. If you turned on Cartoon Network, you knew you were getting cartoons. That was the brand. That was the promise. Which is why what happened in 2009 felt like such a betrayal. Out of nowhere, the network decided that maybe cartoons weren't enough and maybe that they needed to become something else entirely, and what followed is one of the strangest, weirdest, misguided pivots in television history. So how does a network that was absolutely killing it with animation suddenly decide to pivot to live action? Well, like most bad decisions in TV history, it started at the top. In 2007, Cartoon Network got a new president, Stuart Snyder. He came from the world of home video distribution and digital media, not traditional kids animation, and Snyder had this vision that instead of being the cartoon channel, CN could become a broader kids entertainment brand. And he was looking at the competition. I mean, around this time, Disney Channel and Nickelodeon were raking in monster ratings with hit shows like Hannah Montana, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Drake and Josh, iCarly. These weren't just popular, they were merchandising goldmine. And his thinking was, well, if they can do it, well then why can't we? Here's the problem, right? Cartoon Network's entire identity was built on cartoons. The name wasn't just branding, it was a promise. Viewers came to CN specifically to escape these live action kids sitcoms. Trying to suddenly copy the competition wasn't just a risk, it was a full-on identity crisis. It got rid of Cartoon Network's whole differentiator. Internally, this wasn't just about changing trends. Snyder wanted to expand CN's audience and future-proof the network by broadening the type of shows that they offered.
We don't know anything. It's nice to say we think we know, but at the end of the day, we have the best. All we have is our instincts and our gut feeling. I know that when we were pitched a Rick and Morty or Adventure Time, or a regular show, it's just first thing I look for is the creative team's excitement. At the end of the day, I look for the enthusiasm and the excitement from the creative team. Are they like lit up on this idea?
He saw live action as a way to bring in new viewers, older tweens, and maybe even pull in families. It was really like Cartoon Network wanting to become MTV. And the result of that strategy was CN Real, a dedicated programming block for live action reality shows, game shows, stunt-based competitions. This wasn't just a couple of experimental programs sprinkled into the schedule. This was a full-fledged rebrand push with a name, a logo, a marketing campaign, and an entire summer lineup of live action premieres. And when CN Real finally launched in June 2009, it was like stepping into an alternate universe where Cartoon Network had decided cartoons, the thing in its name, were optional, and fans noticed immediately. On fan forums at the time, you could find threads with titles like "Why are no cartoons on Cartoon Network?" or "CN Real is ruining my childhood." The backlash was loud. Longtime fans saw this as Cartoon Network's abandoning its identity, and younger viewers often just changed the channel to Disney or Nickelodeon instead. Does anyone else remember Nickelodeon's Worldwide Day of Play when they forced all of us by going outside and they like turned the network off, but you just switched to a totally different channel? It's kind of like that.
What you trying to watch? I don't care, whatever you want to watch. What the hell, nah? You don't change this shit?
The hype for premieres quickly fizzled out, and most of the CN Real shows failed to find consistent audiences. I mean, a few hung on for multiple seasons, but the overall block never came close to the kind of success Disney and Nick were having with their live action. And part of the problem was that the shows themselves weren't strong enough to win over skeptics. I mean, they weren't must-see TV. They felt like filler shows just trying to fill a void or trying to chase a boy-centric audience, which brings us to the actual lineup of CN Real, which was a collection of shows so strange and mismatched it almost feels like a fever dream in hindsight. The shows themselves weren't all terrible on paper. Some had decent concepts for maybe a different network, but the sheer mismatch between the CN brand and these live action reality / game shows made them feel wrong from the start. So let's talk about them. The shows included, and I may have missed one, so please let me know, The Other Siders, Survive This, Dude, What Will Happen, Bobb'e Says, Brain Rush, Destroy Build Destroy. So yeah, if I miss one, just let me know. The Other Siders, this one was Cartoon Network's attempt at ghost hunting shows for kids. I don't even remember this show. Honestly, ghost hunting was not my thing, but it was a group of teenagers with camcorders that went around investigating haunted locations, trying to find proof of paranormal activity. Imagine Scooby-Doo if you took away the animation, the comedy, and well, anything interesting. A ghost show for kids. It was a simple, low-budget ghost hunting knockoff. Also, I'll be real, I have no memory of this show. Like I said, it ran for a single season, as many of these shows did, and then disappeared completely into the ether. I mean, I watched this 1 30-second intro clip and it was truly disturbed why they even made this show and thought that it would be okay on Cartoon Network. Take a look.
Locals say spirits of the former prisoners who were tortured and died here still haunt this forsaken lockup.
What was that?
Will the team find that these are simply local legends, or can they determine the prison is truly haunted?
Like, this easily would have scared the hell out of me as a kid. I'm not watching this. Now, Survive This was another show idea they had, hosted by survivalist Les Shroud. This was pitched as a gritty wilderness kind of survival competition for teens. Cartoon Network was just going for quantity, not quality, grasping at every genre and type of show that they could think of. But I will be honest, I probably would have watched this show and enjoyed it. It kind of reminds me of Flight 29 Down mixed with like Survivor. Does anyone remember Flight 29 Down? It was like a scripted series of an all teens flight that crashes on an island, and they have to like survive, and there's like social conflict. It's a decent show. I think it was on Discovery Channel. Survive this, contestants had to tackle outdoor challenges and prove that they could rough it without modern luxuries. On paper, it sounds like Man vs. Wild Jr., not a problem, but in practice, it clashed so hard with Cartoon Network's vibe that it never stood a chance. Kids tuning in for Ben 10 weren't exactly staying for something that would probably been on the Discovery Network or Animal Planet or something like that, and that's part of the reason that it failed. Now, I do think it could have worked as a show on another network. Now, tell me you all remember this one. Dude, What Will Happen Easy is one of the more memorable shows on CN Real, and probably because it lasted longer than most of the others. 3 teenage shows, CJ, Jackson, and Ollie tested out random what-if scenarios like, what will happen if we filled a swimming pool with soda, or what will happen if we put a rocket on a skateboard, or what will happen if we shove firecrackers up Jackson's butt. Like, they were a teenage boy version of Mythbusters, and it seemed like most of the other shows' budgets went towards this show, and it somehow ran for 3 whole seasons from 2009 to 2011, making it one of the block's more semi-successful shows. It was the most boy show ever, as many of these were. We had other options like Destroy, Build, Destroy. It was probably the most famous CN Real show, and honestly, it was the closest thing they had to an actual hit. Hosted by Andrew WK, teams of kids would blow something up. Once again, very much another boy show. Then they'd rebuild it into some new contraption and finally destroy it for the last time in a head-to-head challenge. The show definitely knew its identity from the jump. It was loud, over the top, and kind of fit Cartoon Network's brand better than most of the shows somehow. Maybe it was like a weird version of Kids Next Door and Eddy type of vibe. It ran for 4 whole seasons from 2009 to 2011, making it the longest lived CN Real series, which is crazy because I did not know it ran that long. I thought it had like a smooth 2 seasons at max. Bobb'e Says was essentially a comedy sketch show hosted by child actor Bobby J. Thompson. The whole gimmick was him giving funny commentary on everyday life, maybe interviewing a few people, pranking some people, and dropping one-liners. Bobby himself was charismatic, of course. That's how he got this job and did so well on other TV shows before, but the show barely lasted. I mean, just 1 season of 9 episodes before CN quietly pulled the plug. I mean, I'm having a hard time myself just finding clips of this show on the internet. It's almost like Cartoon Network tried to scrub any and all existence of it. Then there was Brain Rush, which I kind of found a little bit interesting and quite novel. It was a trivia game show, but on a roller coaster. Hosted by pre-New Girl Maurice, contestants had to answer questions while riding rides at Knott's Berry Farm. It was kind of brilliant in a chaotic way, also completely random for Cartoon Network. Oddly enough, I could see the show on Nickelodeon. The show literally only lasted 6 episodes, making it one of the most short-lived CN experiences. I mean, it's fun in hindsight knowing Winston Bishop himself once hosted a Cartoon Network game show. Interesting idea for a show, just long-term, it doesn't really work. The whole CN Real lineup felt like a strange experiment because it kind of was. Part Nickelodeon, part Discovery Channel, part MTV, but without the polish of either. Few shows had potential, but most of them didn't last more than a season. The fans, they weren't buying it. Ratings dropped, complaints piled up, and pretty soon CN Real became the poster child for everything not to do when rebranding a network. What makes the CN era sting even more is what Cartoon Network had waiting in the wings. While executives were pouring time and money into ghost hunting teens and roller coaster trivia, some of the most groundbreaking animated shows of the 2010s were sitting on the launch pad. I mean, Adventure Time had already been greenlit, and the pilot was floating around on the internet picking up a cult following. Regular Show was gearing up for its premiere. The Amazing World of Gumball was in development overseas. Within just a couple years, these shows would redefine Cartoon Network and kick off what many fans consider a second golden age for the channel. But In 2009, these projects weren't the priority. Instead, the network leaned hard into its CN reel. In hindsight, it feels almost surreal, a network famous for being the home of cartoons sidelined what would become future classics in favor of short-lived reality shows. So what's the legacy of CN Reel today? Well, honestly, they've leaned more into original animation and finding passionate creators. I consider Cartoon Network and Adult Swim basically the same network, and Adult Swim has been hitting it hard with banger after banger, but also every weird show after weird show. Looking back, CN Reel wasn't just a bad idea, it was the wrong idea for the wrong network. It proved that Cartoon Network's strength was and always has been, and for now always will be, animation, not reality shows, not game shows, not sitcoms, not cartoons. And thankfully, once the experiment ended, CN bounced back in a huge way. Adventure Time, Regular Show, Gumball, Steven Universe, these shows didn't just put Cartoon Network back on the map, they defined a new era of creativity for kids TV and created dedicated fandoms. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Craig of the Creek. Kind of reminds me of Ed, and Eddy, and it's got like a dope family aspect. I love that show. It's why CN Reel is remembered the way it is, not just because it was bad, but because it nearly distracted the network from what it did best at the time, when greatness was right around the corner. It was a weird detour, but one that makes the comeback story even stronger. So yeah, Cartoon Network's live action experiment was a failure, but it also set the stage for one of the greatest animation comebacks ever. If you guys have another video or another topic that you want me to talk about, let me know down in the comments. Until then, I'm Maurice. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.